12 most powerful female politicians in the world. 1. Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen. Ursula von der Leyen is a German politician who has held the position of President of the European Commission since 2019. She served in the federal government of Germany from 2005 to 2019, holding various roles in the cabinets of Angela Merkel, most recently as Minister of Defense. Von der Leyen is a member of the Christian Democratic Union (CDU) and its EU affiliate, the European People's Party (EPP). In the late 1990s, Ursula von der Leyen entered local politics in the Hanover region and was the Minister for Social Affairs, Women, Family Affairs, and Integration in the government of Lower Saxony from 2003 to 2005. In 2005, she joined the federal cabinet, first as Minister for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women, and Youth from 2005 to 2009, then as Minister of Labor and Social Affairs from 2009 to 2013, and finally as Minister of Defense from 2013 to 2019, becoming the first woman to hold the position of German Minister of Defense. Upon leaving office, Ursula von der Leyen was the only minister to continuously serve in Angela Merkel's cabinets since Merkel became Chancellor. She was also the deputy leader of the CDU from 2010 to 2019 and was considered a top candidate to succeed Angela Merkel as the Chancellor of Germany and as the favored candidate to become the Secretary General of NATO. Von der Leyen was named on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in 2020 and was again honored by Forbes as the world's most powerful woman in 2022. Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen tops the list of the world's most powerful women. 2. Mrs. Christine Lagarde. Mrs. Christine Lagarde is one of the most powerful women in the world, previously ranked 6th globally by Forbes in 2016. Lagarde returned to France in June 2005 to join the government of Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin as Minister of Foreign Trade, before becoming Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries in 2007. In June 2007, Lagarde was appointed Minister of Finance by the newly elected president. She was the first woman to hold this influential position within the group of 8 nations. Christine Lagarde is recognized as a lawyer and a politician affiliated with the Union for a Popular Movement, and from 2011 she served as the managing director of the International Monetary Fund (IMF), replacing Dominique Strauss-Kahn. She was the first woman to hold the position of Managing Director of the IMF 2011-2019 and has been the President of the European Central Bank since 2019. As the first woman to lead the IMF, Christine Lagarde has witnessed a gradual global economic recovery following the recent economic recession, and she has also been instrumental in the IMF's efforts to support women's employment to combat poverty and inequality. In 2016, Lagarde was re-elected for a second term at the IMF. In September 2019, she left the IMF and in November, she assumed the position of President of the European Central Bank. Three. Mrs. Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, born March 26, 1940, is an American politician and a member of the Democratic Party. She has been the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives since January 2019, making her the first and only woman to hold that position and the highest-ranking woman in the history of the United States. As Speaker of the House, she is second in the presidential line of succession, after the Vice President. Elected to the House of Representatives for the first time in 1987, Nancy Pelosi is currently in her 17th term as a Congresswoman representing California's 12th congressional district since 2013, which includes parts of San Francisco. She has led the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives since 2003, the first woman to lead a party in the House, serving as Speaker twice 2007-2011 and 2019 present, and as Minority Leader in the House 2003-2007 and 2011 to 2019. Nancy Pelosi is known for her opposition to the Iraq War and her opposition to the Bush administration's efforts to privatize Social Security in 2005. In the 2018 midterm election, the Democratic Party regained control of the House of Representatives. Subsequently, when the 116th Congress convened on January 3, 2019, Pelosi was elected Speaker for the second time, becoming the first former Speaker to return to the position since Sam Rayburn in 1955. 4. Mrs. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, born October 20, 1964, is an American lawyer and politician who currently serves as the 49th Vice President of the United States. A member of the Democratic Party, Harris is the second African American woman and the first Asian American woman to serve in the United States Senate. Prior to her role as Vice President, she served as the Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017, and as a U.S. Senator from California from 2017 to 2021. As a U.S. Senator, Kamala Harris advocated for healthcare reform, federal marijuana legalization, a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, the DREAM Act, assault weapons bans, and progressive tax reform. She gained national prominence for her pointed questioning of Trump administration officials during Senate hearings, including Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh, who faced allegations of sexual assault. Kamala Harris became Vice President in 2021, alongside President Joe Biden, after defeating incumbent President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence in the 2020 election. She is the first female Vice President of the United States, the highest-ranking female elected official in U.S. history, the first African American and Asian American Vice President in the world. Five. Mrs. Kristalina Georgieva. Mrs. Kristalina Georgieva is a Bulgarian economist who has been serving as the managing director of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) since 2019. She previously served as the CEO of the World Bank Group from 2017 to 2019 and as the acting president of the World Bank Group from February 1, 2019 to April 8, 2019, following the resignation of Jim Yong Kim. Before that, she was the Vice President of the European Commission under Jean-Claude Juncker from 2014 to 2016. Mrs. Georgieva began her career at the World Bank in 1993 as an environmental economist for the Europe and Central Asia region. She held various positions within the bank, ultimately rising to become Director of Environmental Strategy, Policy, and Financing at the World Bank. Her final position at the World Bank, as Vice President and Corporate Secretary, involved leadership communication with members of the organization's executive board, representing the bank's shareholders, government officials from member countries. On September 29, 2019, Mrs. Georgieva was appointed as the next managing director of the IMF, succeeding Christine Lagarde. She is the first woman from an emerging market economy to hold this prominent position. In 2022, Forbes recognized her in its list of the world's most powerful women. 6. Mrs. Tsai Ing-wen. Mrs. Tsai Ing-wen became the first female president of Taiwan after winning the January 2016 election by a significant margin, nearly doubling the votes of her closest opponent. Born in Taipei and not coming from a political family, she initially pursued a career as a professor rather than a politician in Taiwan. Tsai is a member of the Democratic Progressive Party (DPP) and supports independence from China, with a history of advocating for the poor, women's rights, and LGBT rights. A member of the Democratic Progressive Party (DPP), Mrs. Tsai Ing-wen is the first female president of Taiwan. She has served as the chair of the DPP from 2020 to 2022, and previously from 2008 to 2012 and 2014 to 2018. During the first term of President Chen Shui-bian, Tsai Ing-wen held the position of Minister of the Mainland Affairs Council. She joined the Democratic Progressive Party in 2004 and briefly served as a majority nominee in the Legislative Yuan, later being appointed as Deputy Premier under Premier Su Seng-chang, though the cabinet resigned en masse in 2007. Mrs. Tsai Ing-wen was ranked 17th on Forbes' list of the world's most powerful women in 2016. She was honored as one of Time magazine's most influential people in 2020 and ranked 9th on Forbes' list of the world's most powerful women, becoming the second female politician after Kamala Harris in 2021. 7. Mrs. Giorgia Meloni. Mrs. Giorgia Meloni is an Italian politician who has been serving as the Prime Minister of Italy since October 22, 2022, becoming the first woman to hold this office. A member of the Chamber of Deputies since 2006, she has led the political party Brothers of Italy (FDI) since 2014, and is the president of the Right-Wing and Reform Party of Europe since 2020. In 1992, Mrs. Giorgia Meloni joined the Youth Front, the youth wing of the Italian social movement MSI, a far-right political party founded in 1946. She later became the national leader of Youth Action, the student movement of the National Alliance, and she served as a council member of the province of Rome from 1998 to 2002, and then became the president of Youth Action. In 2008, Mrs. Giorgia Meloni was appointed as the Minister of Youth in the Berlusconi IV cabinet until 2011. In 2012, she co-founded FDI, the legitimate successor organization of AN, and became its president in 2014. She unsuccessfully ran in the 2014 European Parliament election and the 2016 Rome mayoral election. After the 2018 Italian general election, she led the opposition FDI in the 18th Italian legislature. In 2022, Forbes ranked Mrs. Meloni as the 7th most powerful woman in the world. 8. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is a Nigerian economist who has been serving as the Director General of the World Trade Organization (WTO) since March 2021. Notably, she is the first woman and the first African to lead the WTO as Director General. Okonjo-Iweala has worked at the Brookings Institution as a distinguished non-resident fellow in the Global Economy and Development Program. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala also became an honorary member and co-chair of the Global Commission on the Economy and Climate. At the World Bank, she had a 25-year career as a development economist, rising to the position of managing director from 2007 to 2011. Okonjo-Iweala is also the first woman to serve 2 terms as Nigeria's Minister of Finance, initially under President Olusegun Obasanjo from 2003 to 2006. Later, from June to August 2006, she held the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria. Euromoney magazine named her the Global Finance Minister of the Year in 2005. She has also been honored by Forbes as the African of the Year. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala holds the position of Director General of the World Trade Organization (WTO). Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala holds the position of Director General of the World Trade Organization (WTO). Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. 9. Mrs. Angela Merkel. Mrs. Angela Merkel, born July 17, 1954, is a German politician who has been serving as the Chancellor of Germany since 2005. She was the leader of the Christian Democratic Union (CDU) from 2000 to 2018. Merkel has been described by many commentators as the de facto leader of the European Union. the world's most powerful woman, and, following the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States, as the new leader of the free world. Mrs. Merkel played a crucial role in managing the European and global financial crisis, and was seen as a decider in domestic policy, healthcare reform, issues related to future energy development, and more recently, the government's approach to the ongoing refugee crisis have been prominent during her tenure as Chancellor. In 2009, Mrs. Angela Merkel succeeded George W. Bush as the de facto leader of the G7, and in 2014, she became the longest-serving current head of government in the European Union. In October 2018, Merkel announced that she would not seek re-election as the leader of the CDU at the Party Congress in December 2018 and as Chancellor in 2021. 10. Mrs. Janet Yellen. Mrs. Janet Louise Yellen is an American economist currently serving as the 78th Secretary of the Treasury of the United States since January 26, 2021. Previously, she held the position of the 15th Chair of the Federal Reserve from 2014 to 2018. She is the first person to have held these positions, and has also previously led the White House Council of Economic Advisers, making her the first woman to hold either of these two positions. Mrs. Yellen was a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors from 1994 to 1997, and was nominated for this position by President Bill Clinton. She was later appointed as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco from 2004 to 2010. Subsequently, she was chosen by President Barack Obama to replace Donald Kahn as the Vice Chair of the Federal Reserve. From 2010 to 2014, she had one of the shortest tenures at the Federal Reserve. Mrs. Yellen then became the first female Secretary of the Treasury and the first person in U.S. history to lead the Big Three economic government agencies, the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, and the White House Council of Economic Advisers. Only two other women in G7 countries, Mrs. Christine Lagarde of France and Mrs. Chrystia Freeland of Canada, hold similar positions to Mrs. Yellen as finance ministers. 11. Mrs. Theresa Mary May. Mrs. Theresa Mary May is the second female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, after Margaret Thatcher. She was elected to the position in July 2016 as the leader of the Conservative Party, succeeding David Cameron, who resigned following the Brexit referendum. Since taking office, some of her key efforts have included guiding the UK's exit from the European Union and tightening immigration. After the formation of a coalition government following the 2010 general election, Mrs. May was appointed as the Home Secretary and Minister for Women and Equality, but stepped down from the latter role in 2012. She was reappointed following the Conservative Party's success in the 2015 general election, becoming the longest-serving Home Secretary in over 60 years. During her tenure, she pursued police reform, implemented stricter drug policies, including banning legal highs, and introduced additional restrictions on immigration. As Prime Minister, Mrs. May conducted Brexit negotiations with the European Union, adhering to the Chequers Plan, leading to the Brexit withdrawal agreement. She also oversaw a £20 billion funding increase for the National Health Service (NHS) through the NHS Long-Term Plan, established the first-ever race disparity audit, and introduced the 25-year Environment Plan, amending the Climate Change Act 2008 to end the UK's contribution to global warming by 2050. 12. Mrs. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, born Hillary Diane Rodham on October 26, 1947, is an American politician, diplomat, lawyer, author, and public speaker. She served as the First Lady of the United States from 1993 to 2001, then as a United States Senator from 2001 to 2009, and later as the 67th U.S. Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. Clinton became the first woman to be nominated as a major political party's candidate for President of the United States, when she secured the Democratic Party's nomination in 2016. Hillary Clinton was the First Lady from 1979 to 1981, and from 1983 to 1992. As First Lady of the United States, Clinton supported healthcare reform. In 2000, Clinton was elected as the first female U.S. Senator from New York. She was re-elected in 2006. In 2008, Clinton ran for president, but was defeated by the eventual winner, Barack Obama, in the Democratic Party's primary election. Clinton served as U.S. Secretary of State in the Obama administration from 2009 to 2013. Hillary Clinton ran for president for a second time in 2016. After securing the Democratic Party's nomination, she participated in the general election with Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia as her running mate. Clinton lost the presidential election to Republican Party nominee Donald Trump in the Electoral College, despite winning the majority of the popular vote.